So I am going to now bring up Todd Daniel with Shiny Box Interactive and Jessica Beavers with HTC VIVE, and they're going to be talking about eliminating POC purgatory, identifying XR committee requirements. And then after that, we're going to be having our Industrial Immersive All-Star panel, and then we'll get into digital twins, and then we'll have our break and open up the expo floor and have refreshments upstairs. So Todd and Jessica, I'll turn it over to you. Oh, and somebody had already asked me, yes, we record these sessions and you will get the recordings, presentations. So if you didn't quite get your camera up and get a picture from your phone, you will get a chance to have that shortly after the event. Okay, thank you. Todd and Jessica, over to you.
Mics are good? Yeah,
Mics are good. Okay. Well, good morning, everybody. I'm Jessica from HTC VIVE, and I really want to kick it off with talking about Jaden Daniels. So he is a quarterback for the Washington Commanders. He started using XR at LSU on his couch training. And what he did is he sped up training to be 20 times the movement of an actual human being. He won the Heisman Trophy in 2023. GE Vernova, with one of our partners, Virtual Labs, has been working with XR and has sped up speed times by 4x. That includes the time for VR setup. Okay. ISS, that was HTC VIVE. We're now working on our second headset into space with the lunar landing. So what we want to talk about is not why it's successful, or we know the ROI, but why is it not already in everybody's organization? So we're going to be discussing the pitfalls along that POC and how to get our dream.
Yeah. From my end, I'm going to talk a little bit about the customers we've worked with over the past 10 years. So we've developed XR content for education systems. For example, with Texas State Technical College, we helped take one of their dental hygiene technical programs, turn that into an XR course for their students, reducing by about 30% the amount of hardware they had to purchase for lab engagement, and then increasing the students' availability for that course by about 25%. So our pieces are probably going to be a little bit more targeted toward what we're seeing from a vendor perspective when we work with our clients. And then also some of the pitfalls and difficulties they've had when moving past that.
Yeah. So one more thing is like Bell Helicopter a couple of years ago started using XR to simulate the futuristic helicopter prototypes. It took them 5 to 7 years to go to market, usually. When they started using XR, they took that time down to 6 months. It saved them millions of dollars. But a failure to mention, which turned into a success, would be Ford. Okay. Ford started their journey about 5 years ago, and they didn't get CEO buy-in. There was a misalignment between the content teams and what was actually produced. But what they did eventually prove out was a 70% drop in the error rate. Okay. That equates to a 70% drop in human opportunity for human casualty. Okay. What they also proved out was a 40x speed of test time. The CEO could no longer not recognize the benefit of XR. It took them 5 years to get there, but they finally got there. So starting down the path of POC, we're going to be highlighting the different pillars of the POC. Okay, and we'll start with hardware selection. So embedded in your selection of hardware, you want to, of course, consider usability. There's going to be many different people putting on this headset. What makes that device usable across those different types of demographics? And then the second piece is flexibility across the use case. And as an example, there's a lot of companies that are using XR for simulations and trainings, right? Where security is not required. These are potentially training third-party contractors. And so they're using headsets that are very easy to just get their hands on because they're affordable. But what happens when your use cases start going internal? When you need to put that XR device behind your network firewall? You're going to need high-grade security. You're going to need a headset that's going to check off IT and security. right? So you want to bring those people in at the very beginning of your POC. Right? Collect their requirements and make sure that that XR selection is in line. But then also prioritize your use case. Can that headset service that external use case that doesn't require IP, but also help with 3D visualization software, right? Support that, getting your data into those metrics and having an Iron Man-like, model on your conference room table. That's going to require a lot of security in place. So HTC, our flag that we fly, is in security. Okay? We have something called TAA compliance. So we own our manufacturing facilities in Taiwan. Own them. We do not outsource any production. We also have 889 compliance, which means there's nothing in our hardware that's made in China. That gives us the ability to work with a lot of federal organizations that have achieved authority to operate in special forces environments. What that has also done is helped us get into and help support a lot of nuclear power plants, right, that have the same military-grade security requirements. But it doesn't stop there. Big banks also have security, so we're in talks with the top 2 big bank, and they're wanting to pull XR into their organization to eventually support virtual monitors. So as you're looking at the adoption of XR, make sure your selections on the hardware side are very flexible. And then to take that a bit further, to talk about the NDM. So you do not want to work with a lockdown NDM, right? We have our own native NDM, and there's something called remote firmware updates, batch configuration. These technical things, knowing an NDM through and through, taking the time to study it for an hour, becoming an expert, you will feel so much more secure in supporting your program. But you don't want to just be with an NDM and it's going to lock you into one headset. So there's tons of great third-party NDMs. I'll shout out to Arbor XR, Manage XR, that are out there. So also lean into those vendors. They will tell you what you don't know, but you must know. Or you will be pulling out your hair when you have to ship back devices to your facility just to do a factory reset.
So I'll step back a little bit and sort of talk about failures and successes, right? I think when we look at the work we've done, again, we've worked with the education sector, we've worked with the Department of Defense, we've worked with medical organizations, and also heavy industry. Some of the ways that our clients prepare for disastrous events to respond to those events, they have these very large-scale, real-world role-playing sessions. That costs hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars per session, right? They're flying folks to one particular area, they're paying for physical props to be there, they have to pay for tons of extras to set up the event. They have to pay for folks to take part and participate in those events. Well, they only get a week. Like, for example, Cut Suit Week is an example where surgeons that are typically deployed for the U.S. Armed Forces will come together for a week and train across various sort of disaster scenarios. XR definitely helps them to streamline that process. So instead of having to only focus on 1 week a year where everybody gets to come together and practice these pieces, XR allows us to create really highly involved environments. Obviously, you get the benefit of XR interactions behind that. And you also have the ability to take that training, scale it, configure it the way you want those scenarios to play out. And it gives our clients the ability to not only have to just do training for 1 week, they can do it all year round. And we're looking at numbers like they're saving 50% of costs in some cases when they're building out this XR content and replacing those physical in-person events. You spoke to it a second ago, but nobody is immune to the difficulties in getting to starting up a new organization. I had conversations this morning with folks at work, like literally leading that charge by themselves within a company, and that's a very sort of lonely state. Everybody has problems coming up with budgetary funds. Everybody has problems getting teams internally aligned. But from our vantage point as a third-party vendor, we get to come in and help teams of all sizes sort of scale XR within our organization. Every single one of the successful folks that do that, this is going to be no surprise to this group, They involve shareholders across all of those disciplines really early on in the proof of concept phase. If you're not pulling in folks like IT, if you're not pulling in HR or your learning and development committees, you're in a silo of your own creating XR content for a proof of concept that may go nowhere because you're not aware of other areas of your company that you need to focus on. So for us, events like this are crucial. Like, you're going to have people that are going to talk for the rest of the day, right? Like, HTC is here now. They create hardware. ExxonMobil is a company that has really gone through the process of launching XR adoption at all levels of their organization. MACE VL is going to be over in the exhibitor space, and they are truly subject matter experts when it comes to helping your companies scale a hardware.
Yeah, and if I can also talk
Yeah,
about
please.
when you're wanting to have alignment. So there's multiple areas in which you want to have alignment, of course, with your internal stakeholders and pulling those all in, your security, your IT, your change management people, your human resources people, because you're going to be integrating new learning development systems, right? So getting those people to the table is crucial. We're currently working with a large manufacturing company that did not do very well in XR 3 years ago. Right? There was a business unit that requested XR, they went off and they designed the content without having a lot of dialogue with those business units. So what they produced was not helpful. It wasn't valuable, and XR didn't take off. What they did differently this time, when they're now rolling out XR to all their different manufacturing facilities, is they incessantly asked questions. They included those business units, and I know this is extremely common knowledge, to say this, especially on stage, because we all know, but incessantly include those people every time you produce something or come to a decision, make sure they're checking off on it. Same with the security and IT teams. So integration internally, integration externally with your vendors. You want to make sure your tech stack and your XR program works together and can fluctuate and move. If you decide to bring in a new XR headset, that's fine. Your MDM will support that new XR device. If you're wanting to bring in a new content platform, that's okay, because it's built with OpenXR and it can translate to new XR devices down the road, right? So making sure your tech stack is aligned and can fluctuate with the insane innovation scale of the market.
Okay.
The third layer of alignment is in the software itself to your enterprise systems. Your enterprise systems may change. What is the API integration flexibility within that XR software to move through your enterprise fluidly? A good example is I was at 3D Experience World last week in Houston, which was hosted by Dassault Systems and SolidWorks. And there was a company called TechViz in the Dell booth, and they were showing off their solution with our hardware. They have 250 API integrations with different CAD software, meaning it doesn't really matter what different CAD software you use. With a click of a button, you can be seeing that in XR. That's huge. So not getting locked in to a content vendor, because you're going to have a lot of different use cases to support, right? Employee onboarding using VR Direct, right, is great, but then that system can also be used to very easily low-code, no-code do training pathways. And then there's awesome custom shops like ShinyBox that can help bulk your 3D assets. So when you're building up these platforms, you can then insert those assets very easily, right? Platforms like Ventana, right, are great 3D libraries that can hold your assets, right? And you can easily move them to different systems. What might be overwhelming is the many options of software vendors. I heard this from a large retailer who's now using our hardware due to security. Even though, retailers and particularly secure their enterprise system and executives sure are. They are so frustrated by the lack of joint integration of all these systems. Why do I have to buy hardware from you, software from you, and then an MDM over here? That's 3 different contracts I have to push through procurement. So the fragmentation of the industry makes a lot of people pull their hair out. But the really good thing is we have MACE Virtual Labs, I believe, in the room somewhere. Chad?
Right here.
Hi, Chad. Okay, so we're working with MACE Virtual Labs to solve this problem. Okay, so one neck to choke. And you can procure your hardware, your software, and your MDM. But the beauty of it is MACE actually has 30 reseller contracts already in place with the top tier software vendors. So with one company, you can then you can buy all different types of hardware and then try out all different types of software without that contract procurement being in the way. So again, looking at POC, how flexible can you be? Drive.
So since 2014, we've made about 150 different deployments with XR technology, whether that's VR simulations, AR, sales enablement tools. We work with a whole lot of pieces. And a lot of our clients come to us to help experiment with bleeding edge technology. I mean, obviously people in this room know that can change overnight for us, and it changes overnight several times a year, right? So we're constantly trying to ingest new technology, understand what the use case is, and help our clients sort of sift through what's useful for them. We are not subject matter experts when it comes to hardware deployment for large-scale organizations. Transparently, yes, we do handle hardware rollout for some of our smaller clients that have a very bespoke need. But for the most part, it's not just about us building an entire solution. We also have to have partners that we can reach out to. I know you mentioned Base VL, but it's true. They do a great job in scaling hardware for large organizations, and that's what they're great at. They're in the expo floor, just like you'll find a ton of other vendors that have experience here. Please take the time this week to meet with them, especially if you have questions around, you spoke to earlier, security. What does that look like for an organization? Deployment, ease of use. How quickly can you update that hardware? How can you get fixed hardware and new hardware deployed? You have tons of resources here, and you can't do it on your own. Which kind of takes me to another piece for security you spoke to there. Whether it's sales enablement or training modules built around safe worksite pieces, every company has IP, right? Every company wants to protect that IP when you're training folks on that. The thing you have to remember too is, I know I said it's important to have cross-discipline interaction within your organization, and it absolutely is. But one thing you absolutely have to have is a great relationship with your IT team. Your IT team understands what your company's security requirements are around moving data. They understand the requirements your company has around deploying software to headsets or any other devices. They already handle laptops and they already handle mobile device deployment. So handling XR deployment is a natural sort of progression for that team. But your IT team specifically is going to make sure that your hardware is ready to work and that they can easily get content updated to that. So if I have one thing to say when you're working on a proof of concept, even if you are one person in your organization that has to take that cheerleader role, please focus on working with your IT team early. Get them in there, get them bought in. We've worked with organizations that have great IT interactions, and we work with organizations that see IT as a barrier to entry for some of the pieces they're trying to land within their company. Again, as the person who's responsible for bringing XR to your organization, it's important to realize that you have to manage those expectations. You need to have that hand out, looking for IT to help. And in a lot of cases that can be difficult, but in the long run, it's worth it, because if they're supporting you to launch this in your organization, you're going to be successful. Without IT, you're going to hit a lot of roadblocks, especially if you're coming to them with something you've already been vetted for a year. You've engaged a bunch of sales folks within your organization. Now everybody's screaming about wanting the tech, but IT's like, hey, you've never heard of this technology, and this is neat for us. So please make sure you're reaching out to your IT teams first when you're looking at running a POC.
And it's kind of funny, because when a lot of companies come to us, they're actually extremely educated buyers. They have been out there testing different headsets, and they have been battling with their security and IT teams, which is actually really good for us, because we kick off with a security penetration test. That's usually the first step in an evaluation with a lot of our clients. And we do very well. We actually had low risk. We did a pen test with a huge bank, and we came back low risk, right? So obviously we moved past that. To pivot, Todd, I hope you don't mind, but another area that's going to have a lot of friction is connectivity. Okay, so headsets tap out with Wi-Fi at around 3 to 4 headsets, right? They require a ton of bandwidth to run at 90 frames per second. HTC built smartphones in 1997. They sold to Google for $1.1 billion in 2018. They actually know connectivity better than they know XR. So what they built to solve for the connectivity issue with XR is a box called Raincore. I wish I had a slide. But it looks like a Mission Impossible briefcase. It's designed to be set up in under 30 minutes. You can pull it on a plane, and it will support running at 90 frames per second, 30 headsets at a time, in a 20,000 square meter range. So we're talking cellular, Wi-Fi, and satellite backhaul. It can be set up on a ship. It can be set up in the middle of the desert, which is being done with the special forces. Okay, it can be set up in your facility as a private 5G network that only runs your XR devices. And what's cool is you can cloud link them. You can monkey link them to have more than put together to cover a broader range. So when you're thinking about use cases that go beyond 2 to 3 people in a room doing training, when you're thinking about, okay, virtual monitors, how the hell are we going to support 500 to 100 headsets? Well, we now have developed a solution for that. So past Raincore, I also want to mention that box is, you can put phones, computers, tablets, drones, IoT devices. It also supports Meta headsets, Pico headsets, magically. So again, it's flexible. HTC's ethos is not to box anyone in. We actually came out with something called the Ultimate Trackers. They're the first self-tracking tracker, which is what we call it internally, but it communicates directly to the headset without Bluetooth. They're used in police de-escalation trainings to be put on the wrists, the feet, and the waist. You suddenly have full immersion. Then you use a software called Cognitive 3D to build AVR events, and suddenly you are tracking people and measuring their ability to perform in very intense situations. The Ultimate Tracker is also compatible with Meta devices, right? So again, select a hardware vendor that plays nice with other vendors. It's very important. Back to Raincore and 5G connectivity, we're actually inking a deal, right? Not actually, it's casting the deal. We're inking the language on our website to release this to the public. We're working with Verizon and T-Mobile to enable all of our headsets to be 5G. So that's huge. So suddenly that removes a lot of barrier with Wi-Fi and connectivity.
Good. Yeah, to kind of fall back to the piece we were talking about, not only making sure that your hardware vendor isn't locked in. You shouldn't be locked into your content vendor as well. I think you mentioned earlier, when you're looking at driving POCs, or even if you want to create immersive content in your organization, you may not have engineering teams that have experience in Unity and Unreal. That's where these low-code or no-code solutions can come into play. We create bespoke simulations for our client, but by no means do we ignore what already exists, right? So one of the first things we do is spend time understanding what content that client already has. If it's, if they already have XR simulations, if they have traditional CVIC trainings, if they have, PowerPoint documentations, we take all that into account when we're planning out how to put forward their job to close out the project we're working on. If you can save 30 to 50% of upfront content creation costs by repurposing your existing assets, whether they be digital twins, CAD models, whatever that might be, that is a huge leg up for not only ROI, but getting your POCs and getting those pieces up and running quickly. Motive.io is a great example. I think Peter's here, he's right there. He'll be here this week. Their tool has been deployed by some of our clients to take existing simulations, run it through the Motive platform to create asset packages that make it very, very easy for internal folks to create small-scale immersive VR simulations. You can do that internally. One thing you can do is if you're talking to a vendor and they're not open to at least looking over your existing asset library and trying to find a way to reuse assets you already have, that's just the wrong vendor. They should be looking at that because they need to save time as well on their end. From our perspective, we have no investors, right? We eat what we kill. So when we're doing these projects, we can't afford those projects to go 6 months over scope. So we try to take advantage of everything we have within the customer's library that already exists. They've vetted it. It's useful material, and we use it to save them time, money, and to do the same thing for us. So again, another example of SMBs that are here today to show that you can reach out to and get real world examples of.
Yeah, that's great. You know, we can move now to talk about once you have everything in line, you have your use cases, you have your hardware selection, your content selection, your MDM selection, and these are lots of things to do. Okay, this is going to take some time. Now it's time to pitch it to executives. Right. So heads and headsets is what the Veteran Affairs uses to get adoption within their company. So what I would recommend, and we've done this internally, we've flown out to customer sites and we've run hardware, and on every single piece of hardware, we have different content that's targeting a specific use case or department. So we're targeting the human resources, manufacturing, learning and development, soft skills. And then we have these XR innovation days. Right? So if anyone here is needing that level of support from a vendor, we will do that because that's what it takes. And having one person be the champion, I mean, I see that as the biggest failure point. Imagine the pressure of pushing an XR program. You have to become an expert in all of these various systems. But the beauty of it is we're now at a time where Ford failed 5 years ago. There's so many learnings that your vendor has that they are eager to share with you. So learn from your vendors, and they'll introduce you to customers that will support you as well that are within your industry. So ROI is very important to get executive buy-in, and I wish there was a silver bullet there. Navigating bureaucracy in your own institutions, I mean, I can't speak to that, but good luck, and we're your support.
Ori's slides weren't exaggerating. Like when we look at the consumer uptake and taking those devices in, people are using those devices at home, which takes me to my next point. Companies that can provide XR content for their employees from a training perspective are getting more engaged employees. When you look at the workforce who is now coming into your industry, brand new folks who are coming into industrial pieces or medical, education, they learn very differently now than we learned 15 or 20 years ago. If you start with using, these folks have XR headsets under their Christmas tree and they're using glasses, they're going to expect that sort of content to permeate the organizations they're going to work with as well. So creating immersive XR content isn't just like a buzzword, it actually creates far stickier training engagement for your employees. And to be honest, you need to speak to young employees. As we're losing knowledge, as folks are retiring from our organizations, we need to transfer that, and PDFs and PowerPoints are not the way to do that for the folks that are in the training want to work and field them.
Yeah, that's great. So I'll just leave you all with this. It's important to be led down a path. And what was successful in that large manufacturing company that I was personally working with was we worked with them for a month every single day to help them check off their boxes. And that was introducing them to the right content vendor, getting them educated in the mobile device management system, getting their network configured with our hardware, right? So we don't sell hardware and walk away. If we do that, we fail because adoption will not take off. So we are here to help and really guide you through it, wherever you are on this journey. It's not easy, but it's a lot of fun. So thank you all very much for your time, and I look forward to talking to you after the show.
Yes, thank
Thank you so much, Jessica and Todd, for sharing. Thank y'all, and they'll be available a little bit later for questions as well.